Welcome to Scoli Sleep Stories. Before we begin, take a moment to get comfortable, let the day soften around you, and settle in for a calm documentary made for curious minds. If these stories help you rest, learn, or simply enjoy a quieter part of the day, please consider liking this episode and subscribing to the channel. Now, when you are ready, let us begin. Chapter 1: Sunset Above the Reef. Late sunlight rests upon the tropical sea, spreading a path of muted gold across the surface. From above, the water appears smooth in some places and lightly folded in others, shaped by a breeze that has traveled far across the open ocean. Small waves pass toward a distant shore. Beneath them, almost hidden by reflection, lies a coral reef. The reef occupies a shallow stretch of clear, moving water. It might be part of a fringing reef, growing close to an island or a continental coast. Elsewhere in the world, a reef may lie farther from land, separated from it by a lagoon or a channel of deeper water. This is known as a barrier reef, and in some regions, reefs form wide rings around central lagoons. These ring-shaped systems are called atolls. Here, the reef slopes gently away from shore. Its highest ridges stand beneath only a few meters of water, while its outer edge descends into deeper blue. Sunlight can still reach much of this place. That light is one reason familiar reef-building corals thrive in warm tropical and subtropical seas. They generally favor water clear enough for sunlight to pass through, and moving enough to carry oxygen and food. Corals are not limited to these bright, warm places. Other kinds live in cold seas and in deep water, far beyond the reach of sunlight. But this shallow reef has been shaped by generations of corals suited to a sunlit environment. As the sun lowers, we descend through its fading light. The surface moves overhead like a ceiling made of glass. Golden rays bend and scatter as they enter the sea, becoming softer with depth. They cross the water in broad, wavering bands and illuminate tiny drifting particles. Each particle rises, falls, or turns within the current. Together, they make the water's motion visible, tracing its passage between coral heads and across pale, sandy channels. The reef below is not a flat garden. It is a layered, three-dimensional structure made of ridges, shelves, pillars, crevices, and branching forms. Rounded corals rise like weathered boulders. Other colonies spread in broad plates, tier upon tier, while delicate branches fill the water with narrow passageways. All of this has grown slowly. The main builders are stony coral polyps, small animals that live together in colonies. Each polyp produces calcium carbonate, a hard limestone-like mineral. Over time, these mineral skeletons accumulate. New generations grow upon the remains of older ones, and the reef gradually becomes larger and more complex. Only a thin layer on the outer surface of a living colony is made of living coral tissue. Beneath it lies the skeleton produced during earlier seasons and years. Deeper still are older layers, including pieces broken by waves, storms, grazing animals, and the ordinary wear of the sea. Coral rubble settles into gaps. Certain algae help cement loose material together. Sponges, worms, shellfish, and many other organisms fill the openings or add their own hard remains. A reef is therefore both a living community and an inherited structure. Its present surface rests upon a long record of earlier life. Now the last sunlight enters the water from a low angle. Colors begin to change. Reds and oranges fade first, because those colors of light do not travel far through seawater. The reef that appeared richly varied at midday becomes blue-green, and then gray-blue. Fine details soften, shapes become more noticeable than color. A school of small fish turns above a coral ridge. In brighter hours, their sides flashed silver whenever they changed direction. Now they resemble a single shifting shadow, widening and narrowing as they move. Near the branches below, damselfish remain close to familiar territories. Some make brief journeys into open water, then return to the shelter of the coral. Their movements are part of the reef's daily rhythm. Scientists sometimes call the transition around sunset a dial changeover. The word dial refers to patterns that occur over a full 24-hour cycle. Day-active animals adjust their behavior as the light declines, while night-active animals begin responding to the gathering darkness. Yet there is no exact moment when one community disappears and another replaces it. The change is gradual, and its timing differs from one species to another. Location matters. So do currents, cloud cover, weather, water depth, and the shape of the reef. A shaded crevice darkens before an exposed coral ridge. A calm lagoon holds the evening light differently from an outer slope facing the open sea. Even neighboring animals may follow slightly different schedules. Twilight is not an empty pause between day and night. It is a time of quiet movement. Some daytime fishes drift nearer to shelter. One slips beneath a ledge. Another enters a narrow opening between coral branches, turns within the confined space, and becomes still. Farther along the slope, a school gathers more closely before settling near the reef. Their bright daytime markings are now difficult to see. At the same time, faint movements begin inside darker openings. A pair of fine antennae extends from a crack and rests in the current. Something small crosses a patch of sand, leaving only the lightest trace. Beneath an overhang, a fish that remained concealed through the afternoon edges closer to open water. The reef is changing shifts, though never all at once. As visual details fade, sounds seem to belong more fully to the water. The reef is not silent. There is a broad, steady murmur from waves meeting its outer edge. Water moves through channels and around coral formations, forming currents that may be felt more easily than heard. Here and there, loose fragments shift gently against one another. Among these deeper sounds comes a dry, scattered crackling. Much of it is made by snapping shrimp. These small crustaceans close one enlarged claw so rapidly that they produce a tiny bubble and a sharp pulse of sound. With many shrimp hidden across the reef, the separate snaps blend into a continuous, distant texture. Fish add grunts, knocks, and soft pulses. Some use sound to communicate, to maintain space, or to gather with others. The calls may seem close, although their sources remain unseen. Underwater, sound travels efficiently and behaves differently than it does in air. It can reach a listener from far across the reef, and it may be difficult to tell exactly where it began. The evening reef can therefore be heard as well as seen. There are crackles among the rocks, muted fish calls, water passing through the channels, and the distant rhythm of waves. Though coral reefs cover only a relatively small portion of the ocean, their many surfaces and sheltered spaces provide habitat for an unusually rich variety of life. It is often said that reefs support roughly 1/4 of marine life. That figure is an approximation rather than an exact count, but it conveys the great importance of these compact and intricate places. Every ridge creates two sides, one facing the current and another sheltered behind it. Every branch offers a perch, a feeding surface, or a narrow refuge. Cavities provide darkness. Sandy channels open between coral formations. The upper reef receives stronger light, while deeper slopes remain dim. Within a small area, many different conditions exist close together. The sun has now passed below the horizon. Above the sea, the sky still holds a pale band of amber. Beneath the surface, however, the warm colors have almost disappeared. The water becomes a spacious blue. Coral branches overlap as silhouettes. Holes, cracks, and ledges stand out more clearly than the fine patterns that decorated them by day. The school of fish fades into the distance. Damselfish draw closer to the branches. Gentle currents continue to pass over the reef, carrying suspended particles through its openings. Nothing has stopped. Nothing has changed all at once. The balance of activity has simply begun to shift. We move closer to one rounded coral colony. In the remaining light, it appears solid and quiet, almost like a stone shaped by years of water. Its surface is patterned with hundreds of tiny cups. During the brighter hours, those cups were easy to overlook among the movement of fish and the shifting sunlight. Now, across the colony, the first small forms begin to emerge. A soft ring of tentacles opens from one cup, then another. Nearby, more delicate shapes unfold into the current. What seems still is revealing the living animals at its surface, each responding in its own time to the deepening evening. Chapter 2. The Coral Animals Awaken. The first ring of tentacles is pale against the darkening water. It reaches only a few millimeters beyond a tiny cup in the coral's surface. Nearby, another ring opens, and then another. Gradually, the rounded colony becomes covered in delicate, many-pointed forms. They resemble tiny flowers, but only in shape. These are not flowers, and the coral is not a plant. Each small form is a living animal called a polyp. We move closer until a single polyp fills our view. Its body is soft and simple. At the center is a mouth, surrounded by a circle of tentacles. Behind the mouth lies an internal digestive cavity, where food is broken down and used. The mouth is the polyp's only opening. Food enters through it, and material the animal cannot digest later leaves through the same passage. This arrangement may seem unfamiliar, yet the polyp belongs to an ancient and widespread group of animals. Corals are members of Cnidaria, the same group that includes sea anemones and jellyfish. The drifting bell of a jellyfish, the broad tentacled form of an anemone, and the small body of a coral polyp are different expressions of a shared design. The polypmophorus does not drift like a jellyfish. Its lower body is anchored to the colony beneath it. It remains in place while the sea moves around it. Along each tentacle are specialized stinging cells called nematocysts. Sea anemones and jellyfish have these cells too. In a coral polyp, they serve as tiny tools for defense and for holding food. When a suitable drifting speck touches a tentacle, the nematocysts help the polyp keep hold of it before the current can carry it away. A nearly invisible animal drifts toward the colony now. It is part of the zooplankton, a community of minute animals and other small organisms carried through the water. The speck touches one extended tentacle. Slowly the tentacle bends inward. Other tentacles gather close, guiding the tiny piece of food toward the mouth at the center. The movement is quiet and precise. Soon the polyp opens again, returning its tentacles to the passing current. Across the colony, hundreds of similar animals are beginning to extend. Some open fully, while others remain partly withdrawn. A coral colony may contain hundreds, thousands, or even millions of polyps. They may be genetically identical or closely connected, forming a shared living surface over the structure beneath them. From a distance, the colony appears to be one solid being. Seen closely, it is both one and many. It is a gathering of small animal bodies, repeated across a common foundation. Beneath this living tissue lies a hard mineral skeleton. The skeleton supports the colony and gives it the firm, stone-like shape we recognize. Yet coral is not simply rock, nor is it a plant rooted on the seafloor. It is animal tissue living over a mineral structure. And within that animal tissue, another kind of life is present. Most reef-building corals contain microscopic photosynthetic algae. These algae belong to a family called Symbiodiniaceae. Traditionally, they have also been called zooxanthellae. The scientific names are long, but the partnership is simple to imagine. Tiny algal cells live inside the coral's tissues, close to the light that filters through the water. During the day, these algae use sunlight to make sugars through photosynthesis. Much of that nourishment supports the coral animal. The coral provides a place for the algae to live, and the algae provide energy that helps sustain the coral. Even now, after the sunlight has faded, the results of the bright hours remain. Sugars made during the day can continue to support the living colony. The daytime work of the algae and the nighttime feeding of the polyps are parts of the same steady exchange. Sunlight, however, is not the coral's only source of energy. As darkness settles more fully over the reef, the polyps continue another way of feeding. They capture zooplankton and organic particles delivered by the moving sea. The colony remains anchored, while the water carries nourishment within reach. Many coral species extend their tentacles more fully after dark, when plankton may be more available. But this is not a universal pattern. Some corals extend during daylight. Feeding rhythms vary with the species, the current, the amount of food in the water, and local conditions around the colony. Even neighboring polyps may not open at the same moment. Here, on this rounded colony, the evening opening continues like a slow wave. A patch near the upper surface is already fully extended. Its polyps stand close together, each surrounded by a fine crown of tentacles. Lower down, where the current moves past a sheltered hollow, only a few have emerged. Suspended grains circle briefly there before drifting on. From close by, the colony resembles a quiet field of pale stars. Each star is an individual animal, with a mouth, a soft body, and tentacles attending to the water. The tentacles lean with the current, recover, and gently lean again. A drifting particle settles against one polyp. The tentacles touch it, but do not draw it inward. The current lifts it away. Not everything carried by the sea is food. Another speck arrives. This one is held. A tentacle folds toward the center, and the particle disappears into the small mouth. Then stillness returns. The polyp does not need to pursue what it eats. Its feeding place comes to it, carried on a current that passes over the colony again and again. We widen our view. Across the rounded surface, hundreds of polyps are now open. What first appeared to be a few scattered rings has become a soft veil of tentacles. Each polyp responds on its own, yet together they give the colony a new nighttime appearance. Farther away, other colonies are opening in their own ways. A branching coral shows rows of small polyps along its slender limbs. A broad plate-like colony presents its living surface to the water above. A massive rounded coral extends polyps from the patterns across its dome. Their shapes differ, and their feeding rhythms vary, but each colony brings living animal tissue into contact with the passing sea. The reef appears quiet from a distance. Its larger forms rest as dark silhouettes in the dim blue water. Only a few fish move between the branches and ledges. Yet at the scale of the polyps, the surface is alive with small adjustments. Tentacles unfold, particles touch living tissue, food moves toward central mouths. The soft bodies remain anchored over their mineral skeletons, receiving what the current brings. The coral colony draws energy from two sources. During the daylight hours, its microscopic algal partners use sunlight to make sugars, much of which supports the coral. At other times, including through the night, the polyps can feed directly by capturing zooplankton and organic particles from the water. These two sources of nourishment meet within the same living colony. One begins with light. The other arrives on the current. We move close again to a single polyp. Its tentacles form a pale ring against the darker water. The central mouth is barely visible. Around it, the other polyps continue their patient movements, opening and bending as suspended particles drift past. The colony does not hurry. It has no need to search beyond its place on the reef. It waits within the movement of the sea. A faint current brushes across the upper surface. The polyps lean together for a moment, like soft grasses under a passing breeze, though they are not grasses and not plants. They are animals, each one held in place, each one facing outward into the water. The current eases, and their tentacles rise again. We slowly draw back, until the individual mouths are difficult to distinguish. The pale tentacles merge into a fine haze over the colony. Around it stand branches, plates, domes, and narrow ridges, each covered with polyps that may be opening, feeding, or remaining quietly withdrawn, according to their own patterns. The reef's stone-like shapes are living at their surfaces. What seems solid and still is made of countless soft animals, joined in colonies and supported by the structures beneath them. Within many of those animals, microscopic algae remain sheltered after their day in the light. Above the colony, suspended particles glimmer faintly and vanish into the blue. Some will pass untouched. Some will settle briefly and rise again. Others will meet an open tentacle and be drawn gently inward. The polyps do not need to travel, because the water travels for them. It flows over the rounded colony and through the spaces between its neighbors. It brushes thousands of waiting tentacles, carrying minute animals and fragments of nourishment. Then it continues onward, deeper among the coral formations, bearing its small drifting inhabitants through the reef. Chapter 3. A Current Full of Life. Within the dim blue water beyond the coral branches, a copepod drifts past. It is a small crustacean, related to crabs and shrimp. Its nearly transparent body is carried between suspended particles, while long antennae extend around it like fine threads. A few quick movements take it slightly upward. Then the wider current gathers it again, and the copepod continues across the reef. It can swim, but only within limits. The greater path of its journey is shaped by moving water. This is what it means to be plankton. Plankton are not a single kind of creature. They are organisms whose movements are largely guided by currents, although many can swim weakly or change their depth in the water. Some are extremely small. Others can be seen easily by the human eye. A jelly-like animal, a tiny crustacean, or a young fish may all spend time among the plankton. Around the copepod, suspended particles travel in the same broad flow. Some are alive. Some are fragments of once living material. There are grains of sediment, traces of waste, and minute pieces of organic matter. Together they make the movement of the water visible. They rise over a coral ridge, scatter above a shallow hollow, and gather briefly in the quieter water behind a rounded colony. Among these drifting forms are phytoplankton. They are photosynthetic drifters, using sunlight to make food. During the day they occupy sunlit waters and form part of the ocean's wide and intricate food web. There is also zooplankton, the animal portion of the drifting community. The copepod is one example. Other zooplankton feed on phytoplankton, smaller animals or suspended organic material. In turn, zooplankton become food for corals, fish, and many other reef inhabitants. The boundary between a reef animal and a planktonic animal is not always fixed. Many creatures that will later crawl, swim, burrow, or remain attached to the reef begin their lives as drifters. Fish eggs float in the water. The larvae of corals, crabs, mollusks, and marine worms travel with the currents. A larva is an early stage of life, often quite different in shape and behavior from the adult it may become. A young coral drifting through the water does not yet resemble the colony it might one day form. A larval crab does not yet walk across the reef on jointed legs. For a time, each belongs to the moving water. It may be able to turn, rise, or sink, but the current still determines much of its route. For a while, it belongs to the open flow. As night settles more fully over the reef, the shallower water receives new visitors. Many zooplankton rise from deeper layers after dusk. Their upward and downward journey is known as diel vertical migration. The word diel refers to a daily cycle, while vertical describes movement through the depths. During the brighter hours, many of these animals remain lower in the water. They move toward shallower, food-rich layers. Before or around dawn, they descend again. This is not a single, perfectly ordered migration. Not every planktonic animal takes part. Different species rise to different depths, and they do not all begin at the same time. Their movements may change with moonlight, weather, temperature, the location of food, and the presence of animals that feed upon them. For many zooplankton, remaining deeper during daylight may reduce exposure to predators that hunt mainly by sight. Under dimmer conditions, they can enter the upper water to feed. Yet this pattern is not universal. Each kind of animal follows its own rhythm, responding to the conditions around it. From the reef below, the change appears gradual. There is no clear border marking the arrival of the migrating animals. The drifting points simply become more numerous. A larval mollusk passes through the current. A small shrimp-like animal moves with delicate strokes. Fish eggs turn slowly in the water, each carrying the possibility of a young fish, though settlement and survival are never guaranteed. The sea carries beginnings in great numbers, without revealing where they will go. Some will remain near the reef where they began, others will move beyond it. Many will never find a suitable place to settle. Their futures remain open as they drift through the darkness. Water moving toward the reef carries more than plankton. Currents transport oxygen, dissolve nutrients, reproductive cells, larvae, sediment, suspended food, and waste products. As the water passes over coral surfaces and through narrow spaces, some materials are gathered by living organisms. Others continue onward. The reef is not simply waiting for nourishment to arrive from distant water. Its inhabitants recycle material locally as well. Waste released by one organism may contain nutrients that another can use. Microorganisms help process organic matter. Grazers consume algae. Small scavengers gather fragments. Materials pass through many bodies and forms, sometimes remaining within the reef community for a long while. Local recycling and the larger current exist together. One keeps materials moving through the neighborhood of the reef. The other connects that neighborhood to the wider ocean. A current may pass one island and continue toward another. It may carry fish larvae away from the reef where their parents lived, across channels of deeper water, and toward a distant reef system. Coral larvae may also travel between separated islands before some encounter a surface suitable for settlement. Their routes are not straight lines across an ocean map. Water changes direction and speed. Some larvae remain close to their place of origin. Others travel considerable distances. Many do not settle at all. For those that do, the current may connect one reef community with another far beyond sight. In this way, the moving water carries both nourishment and possibility. Near the coral, however, the flow becomes more intricate. A ridge lifts the water upward. Suspended particles rise with it, then descend slowly on the other side. A narrow channel gathers the broad current into a quicker stream. Beneath a ledge, the movement softens, and fine material seems to hang almost motionless. Behind a large coral head, a small eddy turns. An eddy is a looping movement formed as flowing water passes an obstacle or an uneven surface. The suspended particles circle once, and then again. Some escape into the main flow. Others remain a little longer in the sheltered pocket. Cavities within the reef hold quiet pools of water. Narrow openings guide the flow into slender streams. Sand channels allow it to spread between raised coral formations. Hollow and ridge changes the current in a small way. Even coral branches alter the water. The flow divides around each branch and joins again beyond it. Between closely spaced branches, it may slow or pass through in narrow threads. Tiny organisms may be carried within reach of coral tentacles. Other particles move through untouched and continue into the night. These variations matter to the life of the reef. A steady flow can bring oxygen and suspended food. A sheltered cavity may offer calmer water to a tiny animal. Sediment settles where the current slows. Fine material collects in hollows, while a narrow stream may carry loose particles farther along. The reef's architecture and the moving water are always meeting. Coral ridges, plates, domes, cavities, and branches redirect the flow. That redirected flow affects where food arrives, where sediment settles, and where a drifting larva might pause. Nothing in this movement is entirely separate. The form of the reef shapes the current. The current carries materials through the reef. Living animals gather those materials, transform them, and return some of them to the water. The copepod has now traveled beyond the first coral colony. It enters a channel where the current moves more steadily. With a brief flick, it changes direction, though the water continues carrying it along the reef. Around it drift grains, eggs, larvae, fragments, and living cells. Some have come from nearby. Others may have crossed open water from a distant island or reef system. Their histories cannot be seen, but for this quiet moment, they share the same stream. The current bends around a ledge and spreads into calmer water. Suspended particles turn slowly in the sheltered space. A few settle toward the sand. Others are lifted again and carried between the coral branches. Above, the last traces of evening brightness have faded. Below, coral polyps continue gathering what the flow delivers. The water passes over them, through them, and onward, carrying the reef's drifting community into deeper night. As the water fills with more wandering life, the reef's daytime residents become quieter. Along the coral branches and beneath shaded ledges, fish begin choosing sheltered places to rest. Soon, while the current continues its patient journey, the reef's night shift will emerge. Chapter 4. The Night Shift of Reef Fish. The current carries its drifting community beyond the coral edge, through water that has become a deep, quiet blue. Suspended grains catch the remaining light, appearing for a moment as silver points before fading into shadow. Along the reef, the fishes that filled the daylight hours with color and movement are making their final journeys toward shelter. A butterfly fish passes above a coral mound, then turns toward a familiar hollow. Nearby, small damselfishes draw closer to the branching corals where they spent the day. Their movements become shorter and less frequent. Instead of crossing open water, they remain near the narrow spaces between coral branches. Other fishes gather beneath ledges or hover beside rock faces. Some settle alone, while others form resting groups. A school that moved together above the reef during the afternoon becomes a quiet cluster near a sheltered wall. Each fish maintains its place with small motions of its fins, adjusting gently whenever the current changes. Fish rest is not exactly the same as human sleep. Different species rest in different ways, and scientists often describe this condition as sleep-like. Activity slows, and responses become less immediate. Yet a resting fish may still sense a vibration, a change in water movement, or a nearby disturbance. Most reef fishes do not have movable eyelids, so their eyes remain open. Their rest is recognized through other signs. Swimming slows. The fish chooses a sheltered place and pays less attention to ordinary movement. Its body remains close to coral, stone, or the shaded wall of a crevice. As darkness deepens, some fishes change color or pattern. Bright markings may become duller. Clear patterns may soften into irregular patches or muted bands. A fish that was easy to recognize in sunlight may appear blotchy and subdued at night. In the dim water, these altered colors blend into the blue-gray shapes of the reef. Near the base of a coral outcrop, a parrotfish moves slowly along the rock. It passes over a narrow patch of sand, finds a shallow recess beneath the coral, and slips inside. The fish turns once within the confined space. Its fins lift a faint veil of sediment, which rises around the entrance before settling again. Then the parrotfish grows still, held gently within the shape of the recess. Some parrotfishes and wrasses produce a covering of mucus while they rest. The mucus comes from the fish's own body and forms a thin cocoon around it. Not every species does this. Even among species that can make a cocoon, not every individual produces one, and it may not happen every night. When a cocoon is formed, the clear material gathers around the body like a delicate, nearly invisible veil. It is not armor, and it is not an airtight bubble. Water remains around the resting fish, flowing softly through its sheltered part of the reef. Evidence suggests that this mucus covering can reduce attacks by gnathiid isopods. These are very small crustaceans, and their juvenile stages may feed briefly on the blood of fishes. In this way, the cocoon can function somewhat like a fine marine mosquito net, placing a gentle barrier between the resting fish and the tiny isopods moving through the reef. Within its recess, the parrotfish remains quiet. The water is now too dim for its familiar daytime colors to show clearly. A little moonlight may reach down from above, tracing pale edges and silver reflections across exposed surfaces. Most colors remain subdued, and much of the reef rests in soft shadow. Yet the reef is not becoming empty. Its rhythm is changing. From beneath a broad ledge, a squirrelfish moves into view. During daylight, many squirrelfishes remain in caves, beneath overhangs or in other shaded places. Now in the low light, they begin to emerge. Their eyes are large, a common feature among fishes adapted to evening and night. Enlarged eyes gather more of the available light, helping these fishes detect shapes and movement after the brighter colors of day have faded. A second squirrelfish appears near the ledge, then pauses at the entrance. Its reddish daytime coloring looks dark and muted. It holds its place above the coral with steady movements of its fins, facing into the current. Soldierfishes also begin leaving their daytime shelters. Like squirrelfishes, many have large eyes suited to low-light conditions. Their emergence is gradual. One fish moves into open water, then another, while several remain beneath the ledge a little longer. The change from a daytime community to a nighttime community is not perfectly synchronized. There is no single moment when every day-active fish disappears and every night-active fish arrives. Instead, the two rhythms overlap. A late-moving daytime fish may still cross a patch of open water. A nocturnal fish may wait at the mouth of a cave, remaining near shelter before venturing farther. For a while, both are present, each responding to the fading light, the movement of food, and the familiar pattern of its own activity. Cardinal fishes drift out from among the coral branches. Their large eyes turn toward the current as they watch the dim water. Some remain close together while others spread beyond the shaded places where they gathered during the day. Big eyes appear near deeper openings, their rounded eyes catching pale traces of light. Sweepers gather beneath ledges and along reef walls, sometimes forming loose groups that move together through the darkness. Some groupers are active at night as well, traveling slowly near the bottom or remaining close to coral structures. These night-active fishes may use feeding areas that daytime fishes occupied only a short while earlier. By becoming active at different times, species can share parts of the reef while reducing direct competition. A channel crossed by day-active fishes in sunlight may be used by night-eating fishes after dusk. The water above a coral head may hold one community during the day and another after dark. The place remains the same, but its visitors and patterns of movement gradually change. The separation is never complete. A reef contains too many species and too many individual rhythms for a strict division. Some fishes are most active around dawn or dusk. Some may remain in shelter longer, while others emerge before the last evening light has gone. Some rest for part of the night and move again before morning. Still, the broad change is easy to sense. Open spaces that were busy with small, brightly colored fishes have become quieter. Movement gathers near ledges, channels, and shadowed entrances. Large eyes turn toward passing particles. Fins make restrained adjustments against the current. A cardinal fish rises a short distance into the flowing water. It pauses there briefly, then returns to its place beside the reef. Nearby, a soldierfish follows the contour of the coral, its shape outlined for a moment against the slightly lighter water beyond. Behind them, the parrotfish remains within its recess. The butterfly fish rests near the coral mound. Damselfishes stay among the branches, making only small movements when the current presses through their chosen shelters. Night has not stopped the reef. It has changed who occupies the open paths, who waits beneath the ledges, and who moves through the darkened water. The changeover continues gently, species by species, without a sharp boundary. The open reef is quieter now, but its crevices are far from empty. From narrow openings, slender antennae extend into the current. Beneath a stone, jointed legs begin to move, testing the water and the sand. Chapter 5. Crabs, Shrimp, and Other Quiet Wanderers. From narrow openings, slender antennae extend into the current. They move slowly at first, tracing delicate arcs above the stone. Beneath them, small eyes rest on short stalks, while jointed legs find secure places among sand grains and fragments of coral. A shrimp emerges from the crevice, one careful step at a time. Its shell is nearly transparent, revealing faint shadows within its body. Long antennae reach far ahead, sensing touch and subtle changes in the surrounding water. Although the reef appears dark, the shrimp is not moving through an empty world. Dissolved scents drift with the current. Vibrations pass through rock and coral. Nearby animals brush against hard surfaces, scrape at algae, and shift loose grains across the seafloor. Shrimp belong to a large group of animals called crustaceans. Crabs, lobsters, hermit crabs, amphipods, and isopods are crustaceans too, along with many smaller forms that rarely receive familiar names. Most have a hard outer covering called an exoskeleton. Instead of bones supporting the body from within, this protective structure lies on the outside. Their limbs are divided into flexible sections, allowing them to walk, grasp, swim, dig, or gather food. During the bright hours, many reef crustaceans remain beneath ledges or deep within branching coral. Small bodies are easily noticed in clear sunlight, and a narrow crevice offers useful shelter. After darkness settles, some species move more openly across rock and sand. Others continue their work by day, and many follow schedules shaped by tides, currents, hunger, and the presence of larger animals. There is no single nightly routine shared by every crab or shrimp. Each species responds to the reef in its own way. On a low limestone surface, a crab advances sideways. The tips of its legs rest lightly on the rough ground. One claw lifts a strand of algae, while the other steadies the body. The crab brings the strand toward its mouth parts, where several small structures sort and handle the food. Some reef crabs are important grazers. They feed on algae growing over hard surfaces, helping to keep space available for corals and other attached life. In the Caribbean, ting crabs consume larger seaweeds known as macroalgae. If these seaweeds grow too thickly, they can crowd coral surfaces and reduce the light and space available to coral colonies. The crab does not know that it is tending the reef. It simply follows the next edible strand across the stone. Yet this ordinary feeding can help shape the balance of the surrounding community. Not every crab eats algae. Different species gather different foods. Some collect organic remains from the seafloor. Some capture smaller animals. Others sift through sediment, filter suspended food, or pick edible particles from the passing current. The familiar word scavenger describes an animal that consumes material left behind by other life. On a reef, scavenging is part of a quiet recycling system. Fragments that settle into a channel or beneath a ledge may become food for another animal. Nutrients continue moving through the community, passing from one small life to the next. A hermit crab crosses a patch of pale sand while carrying a borrowed shell. Unlike a crab with a fully hardened body covering, a hermit crab has a softer, curved abdomen. An empty snail shell provides protection. As the hermit crab grows, it may need to find a larger shell. For now, this one fits closely enough. Its surface bears a faint coating of algae, and one edge has been smoothed by long contact with sand. Nearby, tiny amphipods move among pieces of broken coral. Their bodies are compressed from side to side, and many are no larger than a grain of rice. Isopods may also shelter in these close spaces, though their bodies are generally flattened from top to bottom. These small crustaceans are numerous and varied. Some graze, some feed on organic remains, some collect drifting particles, while a few live as parasites. Many have not been studied in detail. Even on a familiar reef, much of the smallest life remains only partly known, concealed within spaces too narrow to observe easily. Within the branches of a living coral, another small crab stays close to its host. Certain crabs and shrimp spend much of their lives among coral branches. The coral provides shelter, while its residents may remove settling material or defend the colony from animals that feed upon coral tissue. A small guardian may pinch at an approaching coral eater, or make the branches less comfortable to enter. The interaction is modest in scale. It takes place among close walls and delicate limbs, yet it can still be meaningful to both the crustacean and its coral host. Farther along the ledge, two pale antennae wave from a sheltered opening. A cleaner shrimp waits there, marked by body patterns that make it more noticeable than many of its neighbors. Cleaner shrimp may advertise their services with conspicuous antenna movements or recognizable motions of the body. A fish approaches and pauses near the opening. It holds its position without haste, then lifts one gill cover slightly. The shrimp steps forward and examines the fish's surface with fine claws. It removes parasites, old tissue, and small pieces of debris, gathering food while providing a cleaning service. The fish opens its mouth. For a short while, the shrimp works near the edge, then returns to the outer surface. Both animals remain calm within this familiar exchange. This place is a cleaning station, one of many sites where animals repeatedly meet for such interactions. Cleaning stations do not operate only at night. Their schedules depend on the species involved and on the habits of local fish. The relationship is generally beneficial to both partners. The cleaner receives food, and the visiting fish has unwanted material removed. When the interaction is complete, the fish closes its mouth, lowers its gill cover, and drifts away into the dark water. The shrimp settles beneath its ledge again. Its antennae remain visible, moving gently in the current. Then, from somewhere inside the reef, comes a small, dry snap. Another follows at a distance. A third seems to rise from beneath the stones. Soon the separate sounds join the background, forming a steady crackle woven through the muted movement of water. Many of these sounds are produced by snapping shrimp, although the animals themselves often remain hidden in burrows and crevices. The snapping shrimp has one enlarged claw that can close with remarkable speed. The motion forms a tiny cavitation bubble, a hollow space created when pressure in the water drops suddenly. The rapid collapse of that bubble produces the sharp snap. The sound may be associated with defense, territory, digging, feeding, and other behaviors. Not every snap is used to stun prey. Its meaning depends on the species, the surroundings, and the moment. Across a reef, large numbers of snapping shrimp can create a persistent crackling soundscape. It is often especially noticeable near dusk or during darkness, although the pattern differs from one location to another. In some places, the crackle rises and falls. In others, it seems to continue behind nearly every other sound. The noise does not reveal the position of every shrimp. Rock walls reflect sound, and countless hidden chambers lie beneath the visible reef surface. A shrimp may be close, tucked behind a fragment of coral, or farther away within a winding crevice. The sound travels beyond the small body that made it. Still, the crackling offers a hint of how full those hidden chambers are. Within them, crustaceans graze thin films of algae, collect suspended food, sort particles, and carry fragments into burrows. Some clean visiting fish, some defend a small territory or remain close to a coral host. Others become food in turn for fishes, octopuses, eels, and other reef animals. These roles overlap throughout the night. A grazer may also become prey. A scavenger may help recycle material and later feed a larger animal. A shrimp hidden from view may still add its snap to the wider soundscape. The reef is shaped not only by its largest and most visible residents, but also by many quiet lives moving through its smallest spaces. The night current passes over shells, antennae, and carefully folded legs. Sand grains shift around the entrance of a burrow. A lobster feels the flowing water with its long antennae, but remains beneath the ledge. A crab passes behind a coral head, leaving a faint trail across the sediment. Above the stones, drifting particles continue on with the current. Within the crevices, movements begin and pause. Some creatures venture outward, Others remain almost entirely concealed, present only as a glimmering eye, a pale antenna, or a soft scrape against rock. A careful blue light might briefly find those tiny eyes among the stones. It can also reveal another hidden quality of the reef, colors that are present but not visible in ordinary darkness. Chapter 6. Color Beyond the Darkness. The careful blue light passes over the rock, then grows still. Around it, the reef remains a landscape of deep blue, softened gray, and quiet black. Coral branches overlap in gentle silhouettes. A sponge rises like a rounded vessel beside a ledge. Fine particles drift through the beam, appearing for a moment before the current carries them onward. In ordinary darkness, most reef colors are difficult for human eyes to see. Sunlight no longer reaches the shallow coral in its daytime brightness, and familiar shades merge together. A red crab may appear almost black, green algae fades into the stone, even a coral that seemed golden or brown beneath the afternoon sun becomes part of the dim underwater terrain. Yet color has not left the reef. Some of it is simply waiting for the right kind of light. The blue dive light moves slowly across the edge of a coral colony. Through an appropriate viewing filter, a narrow green line appears along the coral's folds. It does not shine strongly enough to illuminate the water around it, and it does not glow like a lamp. Instead, the color seems to rest upon the living surface, tracing each small ridge. Farther along, another coral reveals a soft green ring around each open polyp. The centers remain dark, while the edges form a pattern of quiet circles. Nearby, a thin patch of algae gives off a muted red. Only a few colors emerge at once: a green border, a red veil, and a faint point of orange on a sponge. This hidden display is called fluorescence. Fluorescence begins with incoming light. A substance within an organism absorbs light of one wavelength, meaning a particular range of color and energy. Almost immediately, that substance releases some of the absorbed energy as light at a longer wavelength. Blue light may be absorbed and then returned as cyan, green, orange, or red. The process is very quick. When the blue beam moves away, the fluorescent color vanishes almost at once. The coral has not stored the light for later, and it is not creating light from an internal chemical supply. Fluorescence depends upon illumination reaching the coral first. The beam turns aside, and the green rings disappear. The colony returns to a dark form in the blue-black water. Its polyps are still extended into the current. Its tissues remain as they were. Only the special view has closed. This is an important difference between fluorescence and bioluminescence. Bioluminescence is light made through a chemical reaction within a living organism, or within symbiotic microbes living closely with it. Some plankton, fishes, worms, crustaceans, and other ocean creatures can produce light in this way. The chemical reaction converts stored energy into visible light. It does not require a blue dive lamp to begin. Fluorescence, by contrast, requires incoming light to absorb and re-emit. One simple way to remember the distinction is that bioluminescence makes light through chemistry, while fluorescence changes the color of light that has already arrived. On a natural reef at night, fluorescence does not usually make the entire landscape blaze like a neon aquarium. The vivid images sometimes recorded during night dives depend upon carefully chosen equipment. A blue or ultraviolet light provides the illumination that stimulates fluorescent substances. A suitable viewing filter blocks much of the strong blue light from reaching the observer's eyes or camera. This allows the weaker cyan, green, orange, and red emissions to become more visible. Without that illumination in those filters, the same reef may appear mostly dark and muted. The colors are real, but the conditions needed to see them clearly are quite particular. Many corals contain fluorescent proteins. Proteins are complex molecules that carry out many tasks within living cells. Some fluorescent proteins absorb blue or ultraviolet light, then release part of that energy in another color. Different proteins have different structures, and these structures influence the wavelengths they return. A branching coral may show green only near its tips. A rounded coral may carry fluorescent lines through its deeper grooves. Another colony may display tiny points around the mouths of its polyps. Even neighboring colonies of similar shape can respond differently beneath the same blue beam. The light moves slowly, revealing one pattern and then another. Nothing changes within the coral as the observer watches. The special illumination is simply allowing a hidden property of its tissues to become visible. Corals are not the only source of these colors. Chlorophyll, The green pigment used by algae to capture energy from sunlight can produce red fluorescence. Microscopic algae live within the tissues of many reef-building corals, so a red emission may come from chlorophyll inside those partners. Thin layers of algae growing over stone can also show a dim crimson glow. Some fishes fluoresce in patterned bands or patches. Certain crustaceans reveal bright details along their shells or limbs. Worms, sponges, and mollusks may also respond to blue illumination, each according to the substances within its tissues. Often the effect is subtle. A shrimp's markings become briefly distinct. The edge of a shell carries a narrow green line. A sponge shows a quiet orange surface before the moving beam passes on. A small fish turns, and a pattern appears for only a moment before it enters the shadow of a coral branch. Why so many reef organisms fluoresce is not answered by one simple explanation. In corals, fluorescent proteins may help manage strong light, perhaps by absorbing or redirecting some of its energy. This proposed role is often called photoprotection, meaning protection related to light. Fluorescent proteins may also help regulate the close relationship between coral animals and the microscopic algae living within their tissues. They may have antioxidant activity, helping cells manage certain reactive chemicals associated with ordinary metabolism and exposure to light. They may also affect how light is used or distributed through coral tissue. The roles may vary among species, habitats, and different fluorescent proteins. A function that benefits one coral in bright shallow water may not be the same as a function found in deeper water. Even within a single organism, more than one process may be involved. There are also possible connections with feeding. In certain deeper living corals, fluorescence may help attract small prey toward the coral's tentacles. Yet this should not be taken as a general explanation for every fluorescent coral. A role observed in some deeper corals does not necessarily apply to all species or to every colony on a shallow reef. Some possibilities are supported more strongly than others, and researchers continue to study them. No single purpose needs to be assigned to every patch of green, orange, cyan, or red. The colors may have different effects in different settings. Biology often holds several functions together, shaped gradually by ancestry, environment, and the close relationships among organisms. The blue light crosses one final coral head. A green edge appears along a fold. A few orange points emerge around the open polyps. Red fluorescence rests faintly in the algae between two ridges. Then the beam begins to lift away. The orange points vanish first. The green edge fades as the light passes beyond it. The red glow disappears from the algae, and the coral settles back into the natural darkness of the reef. It remains exactly where it was, receiving drifting plankton from the current. Small crustaceans continue through narrow spaces in the rock. Above the colony, suspended grains pass like pale dust through dim water. The colors have not been extinguished, but the illumination required to reveal them is gone. Without bright color to guide the eye, movement becomes easier to notice. A fin turns near the sand. A small body slips behind a coral head. An arm withdraws slowly beneath a stone. Farther down the reef, the current moves across the entrance of a low shaded ledge. Within that shelter, a long shape rests almost completely concealed. It does not need the reef to shine. It waits with quiet patience, guided by scent, touch, faint vibration, and the small movements carried through the water. Chapter 7. Gentle Hunters of the Reef. Beneath the low ledge, the long shape remains almost still. Only its head extends from the shelter of stone and coral. Its eyes are open, and its mouth moves in a slow, steady rhythm. It opens, revealing pale teeth, and then closes again. This is a moray eel. The movement of its mouth may appear bold, but it is usually a simple part of breathing. By opening and closing its jaws, the moray moves water across its gills. There, oxygen passes from the water into its body. The motion is steady and ordinary, like the quiet working of a bellows. Most of the moray remains hidden within a crevice. Its long, flexible body follows the shape of the narrow passage, curving through a space that would not admit a broad-bodied fish. The reef offers many shelters of this kind. There are cracks between rocks, hollow places beneath coral, and tunnels formed as the reef has grown and changed. Many morays are nocturnal, others are crepuscular, meaning that they are especially active around dusk or dawn. In low light, A moray may leave its resting place to explore the reef, though it often remains close to shelter. Its vision is useful, but scent is especially important. Water flowing through the crevices carries faint chemical traces from nearby animals. With its strong sense of smell, the moray gathers information from these passing currents. For a while, it waits. Water drifts past its head, bringing signs from beyond the ledge. A squirrelfish passes at a distance, its large eyes suited to dim surroundings. Near the sand, a shrimp moves beneath a stone. The moray turns slightly toward the changing scent, then becomes still once more. Patience is common among reef hunters. Slow movement can save energy and avoid disturbing the surrounding water. A quiet animal may notice the soft pressure made by a fin, the vibration of small legs against rock, or a trace of scent carried through the current. After some time, the moray glides a short distance from its shelter. Its movement is smooth, guided by gentle waves passing along its body. It crosses a patch of open rock and pauses beside another crevice. Nothing in the reef hurries it. After a brief search, the moray slips into the new opening. Its body disappears into shadow until only its head can be seen. Its mouth continues to open and close, moving water over its gills as the night current passes. Farther along the reef, something seems to change upon the surface of a coral-covered stone. At first, it resembles a patch of shadow. Then the shadow lifts one arm. An octopus has been resting there, its body shaped and colored to resemble the reef beneath it. Its skin carries mottled shades of brown, gray, and muted cream. Small bumps rise across its surface, giving it a rough texture like stone or coral. As it begins to move, the pattern softens, and one side of its body becomes darker than the other. An octopus can change the color, pattern, and texture of its skin. Structures within the skin expand and contract, revealing different shades and markings. Muscles can also alter the surface, making the skin appear smooth, ridged, or uneven. These changes help the octopus blend with sand, rock, seagrass, or coral. Its camouflage is remarkable, though it is not perfect. A moving arm may still reveal the animal. So may an outline against open water. Camouflage does not make an octopus disappear. Instead, it makes the animal more difficult to notice, especially when it moves with care. The octopus crosses the rock without bones to limit the shape of its body. It flows over a low ridge, while its arms explore separate cracks. Each arm is lined with sensitive suckers. These can grip surfaces and gather information through touch and chemical sensing. To an octopus, the reef can be examined not only by sight but also by contact. One arm enters a small hole, another passes beneath a shell. The octopus is searching among the reef's folds for crabs, shrimp, mollusks, or small fishes. Its eyes watch the open water, while its suckers investigate the stone. Different octopus species keep different schedules. Some are active mostly at night, others move during the day, while some prefer the quiet border hours around dusk or dawn. Each follows a pattern suited to its species and surroundings. This octopus continues across the reef. One arm pauses beneath an overhang. There is a brief movement, partly concealed by the rock, and then the octopus settles again. Energy that once passed through algae and drifting plankton has moved another step through the food web. Predation is part of this continuing transfer of energy. Algae and other organisms capture energy from sunlight. Grazing animals take in some of that energy, and hunters receive it in turn. No animal stands outside the pattern. Even hunters may become food for other animals, while nutrients are continually returned to the reef. The octopus changes color once more. It becomes pale over the sand, then darkens as it reaches a coral head. Its body narrows and softens against the stone. A moment later, it pours into a small opening, drawing its arms after it, until the reef appears empty again. Beyond the coral head, beneath a broad ledge, long fins hang like quiet fans. A lionfish drifts out from the shadow. Its body is marked with bands, and its pectoral fins spread widely on either side. Long fin rays give it an intricate outline, yet its movement is measured and calm. It advances through the water with small adjustments of its fins, almost hovering in place. On an Indo-Pacific reef, lionfish are native members of the community. In much of the western Atlantic and Caribbean, however, they were introduced through human activity. There they have become invasive, living and reproducing far beyond their original range. Here, within native Indo-Pacific waters, the lionfish occupies a familiar place among the reef's low-light hunters. Lionfish often shelter beneath ledges or inside caves during the brighter hours. They commonly feed in dim light or at night, though they can also feed during the day. Their wide pectoral fins are useful tools. By spreading them, a lionfish can help guide a small animal toward a rock face or a narrow space, reducing the directions in which it can move. The lionfish approaches a group of tiny fishes near a coral branch. It does not rush. Its fins remain open as it shifts gradually to one side. For several moments, very little changes. Then a single small fish vanishes from view in one brief motion. The others move deeper among the coral branches. The transfer is quick and quiet, one more ordinary exchange within the food web. Soon the lionfish folds its fins slightly and drifts back toward the ledge. Nearby, other low-light hunters follow their own methods. A grouper rests close to the bottom, watching from beside a rock. A reef squid passes above the coral with large, attentive eyes. A trumpetfish holds its narrow body near the reef. Each uses a different combination of senses and adaptations. Sensitive vision can detect movement in dim water. Smell brings information on the current. Touch reveals the surfaces of hidden spaces. Subtle vibrations and changes in water movement can show that another animal is nearby. Camouflage softens an outline. A slow approach conserves energy, and patience allows the reef to reveal itself in its own time. The hunters are part of the same living community as the animals they seek. Their presence helps move energy through the food web, from one body to another, through patterns that have continued across countless nights. Around them, the reef remains calm. The moray rests with its body folded into stone. The octopus explores a hidden chamber beneath the coral. The lionfish hovers near the edge of a ledge, where dim water passes over its open fins. None of these animals moves through an empty landscape. Each lives within a crowded web of shelters, signals, exchanges, and familiar neighbors. The moray depends upon the crevice. The octopus examines surfaces shaped by coral growth. The lionfish moves among branches that also offer refuge to smaller fishes. Even the hunters are not separate from the lives around them. A moray may pause while a cleaner shrimp works nearby. The small shrimp and the larger hunter meet within the same reef, each following its own role. An octopus may share its den with microorganisms too small to see. The surfaces of stone and coral hold communities that remain hidden in the darkness. Beneath every ledge and within every crevice, there are relationships waiting quietly for a closer look. Chapter 8. Partnerships After Dark. Near the entrance to a narrow crevice, a cleaner shrimp stands upon a small shelf of coral rock. Its pale antennae reach far beyond its body, sweeping gently through the water. A resting fish waits nearby, holding almost motionless, as the shrimp walks lightly across its scales. With small, careful movements, the shrimp gathers parasites, loose tissue, and other edible material. The fish receives a cleaning, while the shrimp receives food. This is a form of mutualism, a relationship in which both species gain some benefit. Cleaner fishes may form similar partnerships with their clients. Some moray eels even tolerate cleaner shrimp working around the head and mouth. The moray remains in its crevice, while the much smaller animal searches along its skin. For a little while, two very different reef residents share the same quiet space. These cleaning partnerships are not identical everywhere. The participating species vary from reef to reef, and their operating hours vary as well. Some cleaners are most active during daylight. Others continue in dim shelters or after sunset. A cleaning place that was busy earlier may now be still, while another beneath a dark ledge has only just begun to receive visitors. Mutualism is one kind of symbiosis. The word symbiosis means a close association between different species. It does not automatically mean that both partners benefit. In mutualism, both receive some advantage. In commensalism, one benefits, while the other is neither clearly helped nor harmed. In parasitism, one benefits at the expense of the other. These categories help us describe what we observe, though living relationships do not always fit within simple boundaries. An association may be useful under one set of conditions and costly under another. Its effects may change as the surroundings change, or as the organisms themselves grow and respond. The reef is not consciously cooperative. It is not perfectly balanced, and no central organizer assigns each species a role. Instead, countless organisms live close together, responding to food, shelter, opportunity, and one another. Some exchanges are beneficial, some carry costs, many are still not fully understood. One of the reef's closest partnerships lies hidden inside the tissues of living coral. Microscopic algae live there, sheltered within the coral animal. During the day, these algae carry out photosynthesis. They use light energy to make sugars and other useful products. Some of those products pass to the coral, providing energy that supports its life and growth. In return, the algae receive shelter and nutrients from the coral. Now the reef is dark, and photosynthesis has paused until daylight returns. Yet the partnership itself continues. Sugars made while the sun was shining remain available to the coral. Nutrients still move through tissues and cells. Night does not bring these exchanges to an end. It simply changes which processes are active. The coral contains an even wider community. Along with the coral animal and its algae, there are bacteria, archaea, fungi, viruses, and other associated organisms. Together, all of these are called the coral holobiont. The word describes the coral animal as a host, living in close association with many other forms of life. Within this association is the coral microbiome, the community of microorganisms connected with the coral. Some live within its tissues or skeleton. Others occupy the thin layer of mucus covering the colony's surface. This mucus is almost invisible as water moves over it, yet it performs several important tasks. It helps protect the coral's delicate tissue. It traps drifting particles, and some of those particles may become food. It also provides a place where microbial communities can live. When mucus leaves the coral surface and enters the surrounding water, it carries organic material into the reef food web. Small animals and microorganisms may consume it. They, in turn, may become food for other organisms. A thin coating on one coral colony can therefore become part of a much wider movement of nourishment through the reef. The microbes associated with coral take part in many kinds of exchange. Some may recycle nitrogen and other nutrients, transforming materials into forms that living cells can use. Others may help process wastes. Some produce chemical compounds that can be useful to the coral. Microbes also occupy space. By living on or within a coral, they may fill places that could otherwise be used by harmful microorganisms. Their presence can influence which new arrivals are able to settle and grow. Still, the microbiome is not a simple collection of universally helpful residents. Some microbes may have little noticeable effect. Some may be useful only under certain conditions. Others can be harmful or associated with disease. The community shifts and responds, while scientists continue to study how its many members interact. The coral surface is not a sealed boundary. Seawater passes over it without pause. Microorganisms and particles arrive in the current. Some remain, while others drift away again. Nutrients move between the coral, its microscopic residents, and the surrounding sea. The boundary between the colony and the water is active, changing, and alive. Farther out among the coral branches, other exchanges continue. A small fish finds shelter within the reef's architecture. Materials released by the fish contain nutrients that algae and microorganisms may use. Grazing animals feed upon algae growing over nearby surfaces. In doing so, they open small patches where other life may settle. A cleaner shrimp gathers food from a client fish. A scavenger consumes organic fragments from the reef floor. Mucus carries nourishment away from a coral colony. Each movement joins another, although the connections may be too small, slow, or indirect for the eye to follow. Not every encounter becomes a partnership. Reef organisms also compete for food, light, and space. Some grow across neighboring surfaces. Some carry parasites. Some microbes are associated with disease. A shelter that benefits one animal may limit the room available to another. And so, the reef is neither a perfectly peaceful community nor a collection of isolated lives. It is a changing network of close associations and passing encounters. Benefit rests beside cost. Cooperation, competition, and simple coexistence all take place within the same dark water. The current continues across the coral, carrying suspended particles through branches and over ledges. Sugars made in daylight support coral tissue after sunset. Nutrients pass between hosts and microscopic residents. Mucus protects living surfaces and carries organic material outward. A fish pauses beside a cleaner, and a shrimp finds a meal. Shelter, food, protection, nutrients, and waste move from one part of the reef to another. Some exchanges last only a few moments. Others continue across generations. None requires conscious planning. Each organism follows its own needs and capacities, and from those countless responses comes the intricate web of the reef. In the darkness, much of this activity remains unseen. The shrimp's antennae are visible for a moment, pale against the crevice. The microbial community around a coral is hidden completely, yet both belong to the same field of exchanges, extending from large animals to single cells, and from solid coral branches into the passing sea. The reef's partnerships are woven through ordinary nights, yet on certain rare, seasonally timed evenings, many coral colonies take part in a larger and more visible exchange with the surrounding ocean. Chapter 9. A Night of Coral Spawning. The larger exchange does not happen every night. For a given coral species or population, mass spawning may occur only once a year, during a particular season and within a narrow span of evenings. Reproductive patterns vary widely, however, and there is no single calendar shared by every coral or every reef. On the Great Barrier Reef, major spawning commonly takes place over several nights after full moons in the southern spring, often during October or November. Reefs in other regions follow different schedules. Even neighboring species may release at different hours, on different nights, or in entirely different ways. Tonight, the reef is approaching one of those uncommon intervals. Above the surface, the moon has passed beyond fullness. Its pale light stretches across the water, gently broken by the movement of small waves. Below, the reef appears much as it does on other nights. Coral branches hold their familiar shapes, rounded colonies rise like low hills, and broad plates extend over shaded ledges. Fish rest within crevices, shrimp continue along their narrow paths. Yet within many coral polyps, a seasonal process is nearing completion. Corals are animals, and many stony corals reproduce by releasing eggs and sperm into the surrounding sea. They are known as broadcast spawners. Fertilization takes place outside the parent colony in the open water above and around the reef. Some species release eggs and sperm together in small bundles. Others release eggs and sperm separately. Still other corals follow a different pattern and are known as brooders. In these corals, fertilization and early development occur internally before a larva is released into the water. The reef holds all these variations. Even on a night of mass spawning, not every colony is doing the same thing. For broadcast spawners, close timing increases the chance that eggs and sperm will meet. The corals cannot coordinate in any deliberate way, yet many colonies respond to the same collection of environmental cues. Seasonal water temperature helps establish the broader period. The gradual change may provide another indication of the season. The rate at which the water temperature changes can also matter. Lunar phase, moonlight, the time that has passed since sunset, local weather, water conditions, and chemical signals may all contribute to the timing. Many well-known spawning events occur on nights after a full moon. Still, the moon is only one cue among several. It is not a single command followed by every coral. Scientists continue to study how these different signals work together, and every final trigger is not yet fully understood. For a while, nothing visible happens. The current moves softly through the coral branches, carrying suspended particles through the darkness. Then, on one rounded colony, small bundles appear at the mouths of the polyps. They remain there briefly, gathered across the living surface. Nearby colonies show no change. Another species may begin later in the night. Others may wait until another evening. At last, the first bundles loosen and enter the water. Many contain buoyant lipids which help them rise. The bundles move upward slowly, while the current carries them a little to one side. Their colors are muted in the dim water, with quiet shades of cream, pink, orange, or red. A second colony begins to release, and then another. Gradually, the water becomes gently full of rounded forms. They drift above coral branches and pass along the edges of ledges. Some rise together, while others spread into the moving water. The event is synchronized, but it is not perfectly uniform. Some colonies have already finished, others are only beginning. Certain species will release later, and some will not release on this night at all. There is no sense of haste. The reef has simply entered a rare season of abundance. As some bundles rise, they separate, allowing eggs and sperm to mix in the open water. Eggs or sperm released separately by other corals join the same moving layers. Currents that ordinarily carry plankton and nutrients now carry the reproductive cells of many colonies. When a sperm cell joins with an egg outside the parent's body, external fertilization has occurred. A new embryo begins to develop as it drifts. Only a fraction of the released eggs and sperm will meet successfully. Of the embryos that form, only some will continue developing. Later, only a small part of that number will establish new colonies. The release of so many reproductive cells creates many possibilities, though no individual beginning is certain. Following fertilization, the embryo develops into a planula larva. This tiny larval form may remain in the water for days or weeks, depending on the species. During that time, currents can keep it near its parent reef or carry it farther away. For a moment, we can follow one imagined planula. It drifts beyond the upper coral branches, moving through a faint trace of moonlight. The current carries it beside a broad shelf and then outward over a narrow channel. It is a small beginning within a very large sea, and its destination remains unknown. Perhaps it will remain nearby. Perhaps it will travel to another part of the reef. For now it moves with the surrounding water, passing above old coral surfaces, quiet rubble, and sheltered crevices. After days or weeks, if it survives, the larva may seek a suitable place to settle. A successful settlement is called recruitment. The planula attaches to a surface and transforms into a coral polyp. That first polyp may then reproduce asexually through budding. New polyps form beside it and remain connected. In time, these polyps can become a colony. A future coral may begin with this single quiet act of settlement, long after the spawning night has passed. Yet the planula we have followed has not reached such a place. Its journey remains unresolved. It drifts beyond the coral shelf and disappears into darker water, carried along a path that cannot be seen from the reef. This uncertainty belongs to every spawning season. Vast numbers of gametes may be released, but only a fraction survive to become larvae, and fewer still recruit successfully and begin new colonies. The seasonal event offers possibility rather than certainty. Gradually, the concentration of bundles above the reef begins to thin. Currents spread them outward and carry them through different layers of water. What was gathered closely over the coral becomes part of the wider sea. Below, the colonies return to the quieter patterns of the night. Polyps extend their tentacles into the current. Small animals cross stone and sand. Fish remain within the sheltering forms of the reef, while ordinary nighttime life continues. Some drifting larvae may eventually find a surface on which to settle. Beneath the water, the reef offers many such surfaces: branches, shelves, crevices, old skeleton, rubble, and quiet sand margins. Together, these forms create the reef's hidden architecture, shaping the paths of currents and providing room for countless lives. Chapter 10: The Reef's Hidden Architecture. The drifting larvae move above a landscape built in layers. From a distance, the reef may seem like a single formation, a pale shape beneath dark water. Yet as the current carries us closer, broad outlines divide into slopes and ridges. Those ridges divide again into coral heads, ledges, hollows, and branching gardens. Closer still, every surface reveals smaller openings, narrow cracks, round holes, and winding passages within old coral skeletons. The reef has architecture at many scales. At the largest scale, long ridges rise toward the surface, where waves pass over them. Beyond a ridge may lie a lagoon, a comparatively sheltered area of shallow water. Channels cross the reef, allowing currents to move between the open ocean and the lagoon. Sloping walls descend toward deeper blue water, while level patches of sand rest between clusters of coral. Each region has its own conditions. A ridge near the surface receives strong sunlight and the steady movement of waves. A lagoon may be warmer and quieter. A channel can carry food, oxygen, larvae, and fine grains of sediment. On an outer slope, light gradually weakens with depth. The arrangement is not planned, but over time it becomes a living geography shaped by growth, weather, water, and chance. Corals are among the reef's most important builders. Each stony coral polyp creates a hard cup of calcium carbonate, a mineral material similar to limestone. As a colony grows, these cups join into a shared skeleton. Living polyps occupy the surface, while older skeleton remains beneath them. Generation after generation, this slow work adds new layers. Different coral species built in different forms. Some spread in low plates, some rise in rounded mounds, others create pillars, delicate branches, or folded surfaces resembling broad leaves. Their shapes reflect both inheritance and surroundings. In areas of strong waves, compact forms may better withstand the moving water. In calmer places, thin plates and branching colonies can spread outward, gathering light across a wider surface. The corals do not build alone. Crustose coralline algae grow as firm pink or purple coatings over stone. These algae deposit calcium carbonate in their tissues, helping to bind loose reef material together. Sponges, mollusks, worms, and many other organisms also add, attach, cement, or occupy parts of the structure. The reef is created by a community, even though coral gives the formation its name. And while some inhabitants build, others slowly wear the reef away. Parrotfish scrape algae from hard surfaces with fused teeth that form a beak-like edge. As they feed, they may remove small amounts of old coral skeleton. Sea urchins graze with specialized mouthparts beneath their bodies. Certain sponges enter limestone and make tiny tunnels. Worms, clams, and microorganisms also loosen or dissolve minute portions of the reef. This process is called bioerosion, the wearing away of hard material by living things. It may sound destructive, but it is part of the reef's continuing change. Bioerosion opens new holes, creates sediment, and reshapes old skeleton into habitat. Fine grains produced in this way can collect in channels and lagoons, becoming part of pale tropical sands. Waves contribute their own patient force. They move broken coral fragments, smooth exposed edges, and shift sand from place to place. Powerful weather can alter a reef quickly, but on an ordinary night the work is quieter. Water presses through narrow gaps. Grains roll gently over one another. Loose fragments settle against larger stones, where algae and other organisms may gradually bind them in place. We pass beside a coral head, a large separate mound rising from the sand. Its upper surface appears solid, but one side curves inward to form an overhang. Beneath it, the water is dim and still. Small fish rest in the shadow. A brittle star extends slender arms from a crack, keeping most of its body concealed. Sponges cover portions of the ceiling, filtering tiny food particles from the passing water. Farther along, a ledge projects from the reef wall. Its upper face receives light by day and supports growing corals and algae. The underside remains shaded, offering a different habitat only a short distance away. Animals that avoid bright light can remain beneath it. Encrusting organisms spread across the rock in thin layers, using space that would not suit upright coral colonies. A cave opens beyond the ledge. It is not empty darkness. Water flows through it, though more slowly than outside. The walls hold cup corals, sponges, small crustaceans, and tube-dwelling worms. Some depend on food carried inward by currents. Others feed on particles that settle nearby. The cave also shelters fish and invertebrates that leave at night and return before daylight reaches the reef. Even the sand channels have structure. Their open surfaces seem plain beside the coral, but beneath them live burrowing worms, clams, small crabs, and microorganisms. Some remain just under the surface, where oxygenated water can reach them. Others make deeper tunnels. Their movements turn and mix the sediment, allowing water and nutrients to pass through it. At the edge of a sand patch, coral rubble forms an irregular border. Rubble consists of broken pieces of old skeleton. From above, it may appear lifeless, but its rough surfaces and hollow interiors provide countless small rooms. Juvenile fish shelter between fragments. Tiny snails graze on films of algae. Crustaceans occupy narrow spaces that larger animals cannot enter. Within the oldest pieces, the scale becomes smaller again. Pores and tunnels run through the limestone. Some were made by the original coral polyps. Others were opened later by boring sponges, worms, or mollusks. Bacteria and microscopic algae live on inner surfaces. Minute animals feed, reproduce, and move through chambers hidden from ordinary view. These tiny residents are part of what scientists sometimes call the cryptic community. Cryptic means concealed. Much of the reef's diversity belongs to this hidden community, living inside cracks, beneath stones, within caves, or under loose layers of rubble. Though rarely seen, its members recycle nutrients, filter water, consume organic material, and become food for other animals. Complex structure allows many species to share a limited area. A broad, flat surface offers one kind of home. A reef filled with branches, holes, ledges, and shaded chambers offers thousands. One animal may need a crevice only as wide as its body. Another may depend on an open channel where currents deliver plankton. A young fish may use a shallow coral thicket before moving to deeper water as it grows. This architecture also softens the movement of the sea. Ridges and coral formations interrupt waves, creating quieter water behind them. Within branches and cavities, currents slow and change direction. Food particles settle in some places and remain suspended in others. Light falls brightly on exposed surfaces, faintly beneath ledges, and not at all inside deep holes. Across very short distances, the reef creates many different environments. No single builder can see the whole design. A coral polyp adds a thin layer beneath itself. A parrotfish removes a small trace of stone. An alga binds a fragment. A wave shifts a handful of sand. Over years, centuries, and longer spans, these modest actions gather into ridges, slopes, lagoons, caves, and sheltered passages. The night current moves through them all. It crosses open sand, curls beneath an overhang, enters a coral thicket, and leaves through spaces between the branches. Within those spaces, visible and hidden lives continue their quiet work. Above the reef, the water remains dark, but the eastern horizon is moving slowly toward morning. The architecture below holds the last hours of night in its caves and crevices. Along the highest ridges, the first faint change in light begins to find the coral once again.